A top story this hour, international community called to condemn TPLF for starving civilians by blocking aid. Western officials and media blend of smear campaign against Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and Ethiopian army. And Ethiopians enthusiastically joining the national army. Hello, this is Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. The international community should spare no time to condemn TPLF that has repeatedly shown its utter disregard and cruelty to the people in Tigray by blocking essential aid to the region, noted Ethiopian ambassador to Djibouti, Brahanu Tsegai. He made the remark during his discussion with Mary Njorok, representative and country director of WFP. Although the TPLF has continued to disrupt and endanger the free movements of trucks, Ambassador Brahanu noted the government of Ethiopia has doubled its efforts to meet the growing demands in the region. The two sides agreed to meet time block and hold periodic discussions to assess and upscale the smooth transportation of cargo from the port of Djibouti in close cooperation with relevant authorities from Djibouti. It is to be recalled that the TPLF blocked more than 170 trucks carrying food and non-food items to deliver the much-needed humanitarian support to Tigray. Meanwhile, the unilateral ceasefire declared by the federal government of Ethiopia continues to be hampered by the TPLF's provocations, Ethiopia Current Issues Fact Check discloses. The government has kept in warehouses in the Tigray region more than 400,000 quintals of wheat and 2.5 million liters of edible oil as reserve. The well-being of the people in the Tigray region remains a concern for the government of Ethiopia, it said. International organizations, especially those working in Tigray, need to pressure TPLF to cease its provocations on the Afar region and open the route for humanitarian cargo to enter the region, the government urged. The Ethiopian government has been voicing concern over an orchestrated misinformation campaign by the TPLF and its lobbyists abroad against the people of Ethiopia. The government still believes that the pressure coming from Western governments is due in part to disinformation widely circulated about the war in Tigray. Members of the Ethiopian Peace Corps who happen to be in Ethiopia also argue that the war waged on social and mainstream media against Ethiopia is as alarming as the actual war. With more on this story. Ethiopia has been making headlines on the world's major media outlets over the past 9 months because of the war in the state of Tigray. Though the government believes that it successfully conducted the military operation against the TPLF, which it accuses of attacking a military base in Tigray, the massive media campaign launched by the clique still remains a challenge for the incumbent. Talking to ETV English, members of the Ethiopian Peace Corps who are working towards debunking negative rhetoric about Ethiopia said the mis-and disinformation campaign waged against Ethiopia has been enormous.
We can see that misinformation and disinformation is playing its own critical role in this whole war. The Ethiopian people in the national force has claimed and successfully executed this war to win and take that. But the PR war that was waged against the Ethiopia and its people has been very affecting. It has affected the process, and as we know, and this is because we live in an information age, and the information flow that has been coming full of lies and disinformation from the TPLF and its cronies has affected that process. And In fact, time will tell that whatever they have been talking about, the negative information, would prove itself to be false. But it is important that we also counter it with the kind of information we need to give.
The misinformation, disinformation campaign has been doing a lot of damage to our motherland. And we, as the diaspora, with access to internet and other things, we've been able to raise awareness, and we have to continue. I think we have to engage the youth. We have seen some improvement, but we'll have to continue to do that. There is a chain. We've seen that there is a chain. The leaders would disseminate information. Then that's translated into a pro-TPLF narrative. And then you see the diaspora that support TPLF, expanding that propaganda and pushing that propaganda into a narrative that supplements that team, right? And I think we also seen that from other countries or other organizations intentionally supporting their TPLF propaganda and not acknowledging the efforts that the Ethiopian government has been making. And it seems very intentional and deliberate.
Members of the Peace Corps pointed out that the silent majority in the diaspora is now waking up to defend Ethiopia through well-organized media campaigns.
We have to raise awareness about what's truly going on and for fair treatment, and so there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There has been a lot of work done, but we'll have to continue to do that because I think there are stronger forces at work. And so I think just this week the Ethiopian diaspora launched the Cyber Army of Ethiopia. So that's pretty much encouraging the youth, encouraging Ethiopians in Ethiopia as well as abroad internationally to be able to participate in the different Twitter campaigns we have.
The TPLF forces say they want to dismantle Ethiopia, but that's not going to happen. Ethiopia would prevail, that's going to be true, but that Ethiopia's prevailing in our time should be proved by our participation in this process. The diaspora as a critical element of this society in many ways than one should play that role by countering disinformation, and also supporting whichever way it takes to make sure that Ethiopia continues as a country.
A huge work still lays ahead for the Ethiopian people and government to refute disinformation that has been resulting into unexpected pressures, even from its long-time allies like the US, it was indicated. The flurry of disinformation and the barrage of lies on Ethiopia continue amid as TPLF's present act of terrorism. The Black Agenda report blamed Western officials and media of smear campaign against Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Ethiopian army. The Western powers and their cronies, the report said, are desperate to see their long-time TPLF puppets back in federal power, adding multilateral and global institutions have been rendered useless as the likes of the US continuing their blind support to the TPLF. Abtam Washagri had the details.
The Black Agenda report underlined that Western officials and media who would like to see their long-time TPLF puppets back in power have tried so hard to blame Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Ethiopian army. The report made it clear that while the TPLF's treasonous act of attack on the northern command of the Ethiopian National Defense Force constituted in the Tigrayan capital in Mekelle last November did indeed constitute a war of aggression on the part of the TPLF, the international community chose to beat the drum of a civil war. The initiation of a civil war also contains within itself the accumulated evil of the whole. It reminds cautioning not to overlook the fact that atrocities may have been committed by both sides. State and corporate imperialist media and even democracy now used phrasing like an Ethiopian military offensive, and the war began when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed attacked Tigray, claiming that the Tigray People's Liberation Front had attacked a federal army outpost, as though the well-documented attack were nothing but Abiy's claim. The TPLF also fired rockets at Asmara, the capital of Eritrea, as well as Tigray's neighbor Amhara. Eritrea responded by entering Tigray to defend itself and support the Ethiopian army. Eritrea had the right to defend itself against Tigray proportionately, the report argued, adding that TPLF keeps threatening to invade Eritrea to overthrow the government of President Isaias Afwerki and avenge Amhara fighters, who were also defending themselves against TPLF assault at Dansha in the outset of the war. According to the Black Agenda report, many have chosen to ignore the UN Security Council and the UN Charter's useless and ineffective. It argued, however, that deadlock is far better than domination by the US. However, the US keeps seeking the United Nations Security Council's approval for its own wars of aggression, discussed as humanitarian intervention of war on terror, and Russia and China keep exercising their veto power to say no, the report stated. The report exposes the grim reality that the US followed through with its brazen act of proclivity towards the TPLF by sanctions, international criminal court indictments, and financial strangulation by the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. The US and its allies haven't even been able to get past that first step, censure with regard to Syria, then Burundi, and now Ethiopia, it concluded.
The Addis Ababa City Administration appreciates the initiative of the youth to join the Ethiopian Defense Forces. City officials, including the Deputy Mayor Adanesh Abebe, have given a heroic farewell to the youth who are joining the Defense Force. Kasaun Jane reports.
Thousands of residents of Addis Ababa, patriots, veterans and high-level government officials bade farewell to recruits drawn from all subsidiaries of the capital to join the National Army. Ceremony was held at Meskel Square for more than 3,000 youths and medical professionals from the city under the theme, I Will Fight to Save Ethiopia. The youths were escorted by Deputy Mayor Adanesh Abebe, Minister of Defense Ganai Adata, senior city officials, elders, patriotic fathers, and many residents. The city government of Addis Ababa has provided more than 1 billion birr in food aid to the defense forces. Deputy Mayor also appreciated the youth for quickly responding to the call from the government to join the struggle on the way to defend the sovereignty of the nation.
ወጣቶቻችን ኮርተንባቸዋል።
Our young people are proud of you. I thank the soldiers and medical personnel who attended this morning's program with great patriotism. The terrorist TPLF had repeatedly pleaded with and tried to work together, abandoning its crimes for 27 years. I thank the activists for their unwavering commitment to join the campaign as soon as the call was made. We still call on the people of Tigray today. Our dear brothers and sisters of Tigray, we love you. Your children should not be a force to be reckoned with, and I'm calling on all parents in Tigray to refrain from genocide. The terrorist group was working to destabilize and weaken Ethiopia by abandoning its options and attacking the defense force. The history of Addis Ababa youth's efforts to dismantle the group's destructive mission and stand by the defense force will be remembered.
The deputy may express hope that the young men would return victorious. Defense Force Minister Ganai Adata on his part underscored that Ethiopians' demand is not to touch Ethiopia. In the the TPLF clique is bent on destroying Ethiopia. He also thanked the youth for their support of the National Defense Forces.
የኛ ጥያቄ ቅድም እንደተባለው ኢትዮጵያን አትንኳት የሚል ነው። በኢትዮጵያ ላይ
In our thought, an enemy cannot touch Ethiopia. This terrorist group is now acting as a guardian for external bodies. This is a sign of great contempt for our country. We cannot tolerate it in any way. We have received these youth warriors with great honor, and you will return victorious. Bury your enemies and return victorious. The clique has been pulling its clothes for the past 27 years. On behalf of the ministry, I thank Addis Ababa residents for your support and the youth for the decision to join the army.
Finally, Deputy Mayor Danich Bebe, Minister of Defense Kanai Adata, and senior officials of the city administration donated blood to show their support for the army.
Is Addis News Hour. The GERD is a guardian for downstream countries by reducing flood and increasing water during drought, but not a threat. Those wrongly accusing Ethiopia should come to senses and appreciate its useful investment not only for Ethiopia but also for the region. These remarks were made by Seleshi Bekele, Minister of Water, Irrigation and Energy. The minister also tweeted that the rainfall in Ethiopian highlands is pouring and quantities reaching the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam are currently over 6,000 cubic meters per second, making downstream flooding possible. The surcharge at GERD has already risen by 5 meters, he has disclosed. The second filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam was a linchpin to Ethiopians, as it was a clear showcase of their determinations to complete a national development. Professor of Conflicts Anne Fitzgerald made this remark in an exclusive interview with the TV English. She also says TPLF use of children is a serious crime and the world must intervene. Shifra Lago reports.
Anne Fitzgerald is the director of the Boldili School of International Affairs and a professor in Wilfrid Laurier University's Political Science Department. She is widely reputed for publishing articles on issues concerning conflicts, security, and sector governance. She has been working with water economists and the hydrologists and has good data on the GERD issues. She says the second filling of the GERD was a landmark in marking Ethiopian unification behind common development goals in the face of diversified challenges.
This second filling is a show of determination on Ethiopia's part, determination to complete a national development project, which the people of Ethiopia have supported emotionally and physically and also by committing their own resources to it. And the outcome of this second filling has also acknowledged that water levels have not been impacted. And I believe that this achievement and the hope that it generates creates even more momentum behind the unification of the country.
She also says the Sudanese people are fully aware of the multifaceted benefits of Ethiopian Dam and therefore should not be deprived of this by Egypt.
Sudan's a country that's had a very decent relationship with Ethiopia in the past, whose parliament gave Prime Minister Abiy a standing ovation for brokering a peaceful political transitional governance arrangement following the fall of the al-Bashir government, and which stands to benefit hugely from the GERD, not only in having more of the share that it is rightfully deserved in the past, a third of which it's used only to Egypt using the other 2/3 of its share, but also by benefiting by not having so much sediment in the water that flows. The water economists here and the hydrologists always talk about the Blue Nile being the Brown Nile because of the amount of sediment, and the dam will stop that sediment from flowing. The dam will also provide storage for that 12% of the water from the Nile that in the past has been lost to evaporation. Sudan will benefit for the purposes of its agricultural productivity, and food security for the Sudanese people is very important at the moment. This was one of the reasons why people in Sudan lay themselves in front of the Ministry of Defense and begged the Sudanese armed forces to overthrow the government.
The professor has also called on the world to strongly denounce TPLF using children as soldiers.
The world has had protocols and conventions on the use of children in armed conflict, which consider the use of children in any role related to a conflict, not even fighting at the front line, but as cooks, as guards, people who wash clothes, manage storage areas, let alone handling weapons and fighting since 2002. And this is prohibited under international law and defined by the International Criminal Court to be a war crime.
Some reports are showing that Egypt is working to counter would-be power clients of Ethiopia in the region.
Egypt and Sudan are politicizing the issue of the Renaissance Dam construction on the Blue Nile and are trying to get other countries involved just to solve their internal problems, while the dam in fact carries no environmental risks. Ethiopian ambassador to Russia Alamayo Taganu said this in an interview with Sputnik. Ethiopia will continue dam construction in line with the Declaration of Principles, which the three countries' leaders signed in 2015 in Khartoum, regardless of Sudan's statements, the ambassador assured. The dam is designed in a way to prevent damage for the downstream countries and to secure win-win equitable utilization of resources, the ambassador emphasized. Other reports also show that Moscow has called for not politicizing the issue, and the ongoing differences among the three nations should be resolved based on the Declaration of Principles agreement.